What's up, guys? This is John from Check Us First. I'm here with Michael, and Michael, what did you just do?
I got 3rd place at the Check Us First OTS tournament.
Nice. And what deck were you using?
Shiranui.
All right, let's get right into this profile. Sorry, stole one of your solitaires.
No problem. All right, so we start off with Shiranui Sage. This is the deck, Lonefire Blossom. Important notes about this card is it can tribute any zombie. So there are times where if I don't think a play is coming up soon, I'll keep it on the board and protect it. And then it's an auto play next turn because I can just tribute itself and or tribute any other zombie that I draw.
Nice.
So it has that versatility. When it's banished, it specials a Shiranui out of the banish. That's another important point about it. That's pretty much what it does. Playmaker.
Nice.
3 Unizombie, the usual target for Shiranui Sage. Pretty much just like the backbone of the deck. You have to play him. Very important that he's a level 3 because often I'm able to make Black Rose and blow people out just because they don't expect it. They see him in another level 4, they're not scared. They think I'm going to activate the effect first, and I just go immediately into Synchro and Black Rose,
Nice.
and that'll be the game. So.
Nice.
I do need to mention here that, again, this is an accumulated advantage deck, not really an OTK deck, though it can OTK. So essentially, I'm just sending things to graveyard with almost all my cards, building up advantage, and eventually I just have more cards and activations than you have cards on your side of the board, so I can generally win at that point. 3 Gozuki. This is Mizuki's big brother. Effects are sending a zombie from deck to graveyard pretty much any time. And when it goes to graveyard by any means, then I can banish a zombie from the grave and special a zombie from my hand. This card is the play around back row card because pretty much when they do anything to it, strike, all things of that nature, it gets sent to the graveyard and gives me another summon out of my hand anyway.
Nice.
Very powerful card.
Nice.
Plus the Shiranuis all activate when they get banished, so you normally just banish a Shiranui with its effect and you get that trigger as well.
Nice.
3 Mizuki. I think this card is pretty obvious. It is Monster Reborn for zombies. This card is the advantage builder because you use Omega to just keep returning it to the graveyard after you use it. So you just basically have infinite, endless Mizuki and endless summons and endless plays for free, whereas your opponent has to use up cards in order to do things. So eventually, again, the advantage is just too much to stop it.
Nice.
3 Cyframe Gamma. This card is basically here for Ash Blossom. I originally did not play this card. I wanted to play more traps instead. My friend Zeddy from Island Games asked me to play this card. He had started playing it. I told him no, I was incorrect. This card is very important, very good. There are many times today when I attributed Sage and got Ash Blossomed or something of that nature and just got to reveal this, and that's automatically 2 Omegas.
Oh, yeah, in your deck, that's 2 Omegas. Nice.
Yes.
Nice.
2 Blackluster Soldier, Envoy of the Beginning. Don't need to explain Blackluster. This card is the game ender. I keep it pretty much until the last moment where I have to use it or until I know that summoning it is game. And then I produce it. I just need to say about this card, I feel like people play it very incorrectly. They see it, get excited, and just want to put it on board immediately, and sometimes it's not the right thing to do. For me, I usually allow my opponent to waste all of their effects and their negations on my other cards, and then I summon this last. And generally by then they've paid some life points and they've wasted some cards, and so now this card will just be auto game.
Nice.
The one-ofs. Maxi, obvious. Cyframe Driver, obvious. I played Cyframes. Shiranui Spirit Master. Incredibly powerful card. He turns the Icarus attack card into Fire Lake because you can just pop face down cards and then banish him, and then a new chain he'll trigger and pop a face up card. Incredibly powerful for that reason. Secondarily, he has an effect when he's normal summoned to special summon any Shiranui out of the graveyard, which is incredible because that means anything with Shiranui in its name that's a monster, including the big synchros, all things of that nature. So a lot of times when my opponent knows that they've got all 3 sages in the grave, and they think, okay, he won't be able to make a play next turn, or he doesn't have a Mizuki, so he can't make a play, or they summon Dweller, I can just normal summon him. He'll bring the Sage up out of the grave, and I get my play from there, and he's already another monster on the board, so it gets me around Dweller because I don't need a Mizuki for anything.
Nice.
Shiranui Samurai. One of my favorite, probably my favorite standalone Shiranui, just because he has a quick effect to banish zombies from the graveyard. I almost always, of course, try to make sure it's a Shiranui, and I'm going to get an effect off of that. It also will boost his attack by 600 points and make him banish anything that he fights with. Nice. So that's incredibly important. The combo basically with him is having this engraved before you summon him, and that makes his capability to give you a pop unstoppable pretty much, because you summon him and or he's on the board and you activate his effect. They usually respawn, strike, or something of that nature, which does negate him and does destroy him, but he banishes this card as a cost. And
oh, nice.
Therefore, after they paid the life points and such to do that, this card gets banished. This card triggers on a new chain and still pops the card I want it popped anyway. So
that's awesome.
Shiranui Smith. This was a late addition to the deck. I decided to run it because it can search out any Shiranui card. So even if I don't make a zombie synchro, as long as I synchro with it, I can just search for a Shiranui card. That's Sage, that's any of them, that's the trap cards, anything I want. He also has the effect of when he's banished, making sure that my zombies can't be destroyed by battle. So incredibly useful card.
Nice.
Shiranui Spectral Sword. Probably the best Shiranui graveyard effect. Effect in graveyard is to target another zombie non-tuner, and if it resolves, banish that non-tuner and itself, and special summon a zombie type synchro from the extra deck, ignoring the summoning condition. Usually you target Sage so that when they both get banished, the Sage can activate and bring this back to the field. And you special a 6 because you usually target a 4 and this, so it summons a 6. This comes back to the field and you have an auto 8. If a 6 is in the grave already and this goes to grave, then I can banish the 6 and this and summon the auto 8 that way. Their effects are not negated, by the way. They have all their effects, everything like that. The only hindrance is that it wasn't summoned properly by synchroing, so if it gets destroyed, you can't Mizuki it or anything. But that's usually fine. And then finally, if the 10 is in the graveyard, I can even banish that and this and summon... the 8 is in the graveyard. I can even banish that and this and summon the 10, which is actually a Heliopolis with a auto protection effect that won't allow my cards to get destroyed. So very, very versatile. Some more obvious cards: Foolish Burial. Burial from a Different Dimension, which went to 2, and which is broken and ridiculous. It was actually ridiculous today because there was a turn where I got cherried for all 3 of my Omegas, and I happened to have this in my opening hand. So I was just able to return all the Omegas to the to the graveyard, and then use their effects to put them back into my extra deck, and then use the last Omega to put this back into my deck, so I can just keep having endless burials.
Wow.
You banish Mizuki, and this gives it back, basically.
That's nuts.
The other important thing is Spectral Sword. If this card is banished for some reason and you had to do it without using Sage, therefore it's not back on the board, you want it to be useful again. So I either bring it back with Omega, or when I draw this, I can just activate this and put it back in grave, and it's immediately live. It does have a line of text that says the turn it's sent to the graveyard, you can't use it. However, Burial returns them to a place, it doesn't send them anywhere. So I can banish this with Gold Sarcophagus or whatever I want, burial it back into the graveyard, and immediately activate Spectral Sword that same turn.
Nice. That's good.
3-Pot of Desires.
Nice.
I like to draw cards. Also, the cost is not really a cost for me because I play Omega, so I can just return anything I really need out of that back to the grave. It's fine. 3 Gold Sarcophagus. They all work when they get banished, so auto banishment. This is also a great spot removal because I can banish that Spirit Master card and get a pop without having to commit anything to the board. So just activate this card, banish the Spirit Master, pop whatever I want. What's also important about it is that people forget that it actually gives you that card in 2 turns. So I'll do the spot removal or whatever I want, or summon a Shiranui by banishing Sage with it, and then people think it's over, and then 2 turns later, I actually get that card to my hand. So again, accumulated advantage.
Nice.
All right, the trap cards. Everybody who knows me knows I love these. So 3 Shiranui Swallow Slash.
Explain these for us.
Absolutely. These are the Icarus Attack / Firelight cards. I more like to think of it as Icarus Attack plus Sinister Shadow games, because a lot of people think that it's all just about the destruction, which the destruction is nice, but what's much more important about it is that it gets to banish a Shiranui after it destroys something. So I can just get to any card I want to get to because it just allows me to go into my deck and get whatever I want. So the way I sort of look at it is this card searches any Shiranui monster I want it to search. And by the way, it destroys 2 of your cards. Searchable by that Shiranui Smith card I mentioned. So nice. Incredible trap. 3 Solemn Strike.
Self-explanatory.
I think that's pretty obvious. 1 Solemn Warning. Also self-explanatory.
Ooh, that one's
yeah, you like that? And then finally, Shiranui style Samsara. This card is a game stealer, especially if you're going into time and or about to get overwhelmed by your opponent's massive board. It has 3 effects, actually. The first one is that it is the Shiranui fill spell whenever it's face up on the board. And all that does that's relevant is make it so that if Sage gets banished, instead of special summoning 1 Shiranui out of the banished zone, it can special summon 2. Because this is the field spell, and if the field spell's up, it can do that. The other 2 effects, it can banish a face-up zombie on the board, quick effect, obviously, trap card, and if it resolves, if they don't MST it, Cosmic it, or something right then you don't take any damage for the rest of that turn at all. That means no trick stars, no battle damage, no anything. Nice. They just can't kill you.
Nice.
And then finally, if you have 2 0 defense zombies banished and this card is face up, and you haven't used that first effect, then you can target those 2, shuffle them back into the deck, and draw a card. So
that's actually really good.
Yeah, so as I've already explained, the deck is all about banishing. It banishes a lot, so it's almost always live. And so essentially, you use desires, it gets ashed or something. They ash one of your sins to the graveyard. Again, accumulated advantage. It's like, I'm going to get my extra cards because every turn I can just keep using this, keep putting my cards back, keep recycling, keep drawing. The extra deck. Run through this real quick for you. There is 1 XYZ, that's Baguska, self-explanatory. Everything else is a synchro. Stardust Charge Warrior. I love this card because it lets me draw a card. And then I usually make it with a 4 and the Spectral Sword, and then use a Mizuki to bring the Spectral back, and then make an 8 anyway.
Nice.
Revived King Hades. Another one of my favorites because it takes care of anything that would get a graveyard effect. This effect is actually, due to the place where it activates in the damage step, it stops flip effects, it stops Shaddolls, it stops BAs. Pretty much anything that involves your opponent's monster battling a zombie monster will get auto-negated by this card just being on board. Archfiend Zombie Skull. Very important because he says that zombies can't be destroyed by card effect. So, Time Pendulum Graft. Dryadent back when that was a thing. Anything that is going to pop your cards, generally Time Pendulum Graph now. It just can't because this is on the board. Black Rose Dragon. Stardust Dragon. One of those great synchros that leaves the extra deck zone when you use this effect and allows me to keep synchroing. So, it just protects my things. It goes to another zone. I can just keep making things. Scarlet Red Dragon Archfiend. This deck's win condition is taking you to 0 and taking you to 0 quickly, and this helps you do it. It destroys everything on the board that was special summoned that's of equal or lesser attack than it, and does 500 to your opponent for all such cards. So there have been times where my opponents had nothing on their field, and I'm 2,000 or a few thousand off, and I'll just use all my Mizukis and all of my cards to special summon as many cards as I can. And then activate his effect, and he'll destroy all of my cards and still burn my opponent for game. So. Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon. So pretty self-explanatory. Very powerful negator. Shiranui Sun Saga. Original name Sovereign Saga from the OCG. This card is Heliopolis when it's summoned, which is incredible. Non-targeting destruction of as many cards as I have banished synchros to send back to the extra deck. He also has an auto protection effect. By banishing a Shiranui, he can prevent any of my zombies from being destroyed. And this gets over counter traps, warning, anything of that nature, as long as his summon is okay, because it doesn't activate. So, you know, they try to do whatever they can about your card. He's on the board. It doesn't matter that they struck it or whatever. He can still save it just because he prevents the destruction. Two Shiranui Shogun Saga. Also the game ender, second probably only to the BLS. Essentially because when you summon it, it can banish a zombie from the graveyard and it gains that zombie's attack points until the end of the turn. So that's literally everyone, including this guy, including any of the big sixes I had, or any of the small guys. So including himself. So I've made him 6,000 before, made him 65 before. The last match of the tournament, actually, I was probably likely to lose, as I only had a few cards to his full pendulum board. But all of his monsters were in attack. And I guess just not knowing what my deck did or anything of that nature. And he scoldinged one of my cards, which, you know, was hurtful, but it also immediately opened him to dying because I could make this card, boosted it up, made it about 55, and attacked over his 1800 monster for way more life points than he had left. So. And finally, 3 Cyframe Omega. I pretty much explained this card when explaining all the other cards. Incredibly powerful advantage giver.
Nice. Got a side deck for us today?
Yeah,
nice.
Quick side deck. 3 Gamma Seals, because I don't like dealing with Sleeper when it can't be targeted or destroyed, so get that off my board. Regeki for everything else. Dark Hole in case I have to do it again. Twin Twister because I don't want to deal with back row. Book of Life. Important spell. As long as there's a monster in your opponent's graveyard, I can target that monster and 1 zombie in my graveyard, special summon mine, banish yours. The banishing happens afterwards, and it is an also. So a lot of people mistakenly think that if they somehow get the monster out of graveyard after I activate this, that it'll prevent the summon. That's not the case. So normally they just end up wasting a card trying to get that card out of the grave, and they get it out of the grave, and I still get my summon anyway. And if they don't, then it gets banished. So no quick fixes or any of that kind of ridiculousness. Imperial Order wins games. And finally, Anti-Spell Fragrance. I thought correctly that a lot of people were going to play Pendulums. And even if you don't run into a lot of Pendulums, you know, it hits Spiral, it hits Trickstar, it hits almost everything. Even my deck is hurt by it if I don't expect it, and it happens. So just one of the best floodgates, why not play it?
Oh, and that's it? Alright, so that was Michael's 3rd place Shiranui deck profile. Do you have any shout outs for us today?
Yeah, 2 quick shout outs. First to Brandon Lee Baker, little brother, amazing player, one of the originators of this deck and this build. This deck would not be the deck that it is without him, so thank you for encouraging me to play it and encouraging me to play it like this. And secondly to Harris Mirzada, who is actually the guy who taught me how to play. Pretty much everything I know that's good about this game came out of him, so I have to give him his credit anytime I can.
Awesome, guys. That was his shout outs, and thank you for watching.